Jayden Reed is already hands down the best Packers wide receiver to ever play in the organization. I'm just joking, man. You can stop typing that comment in the comment section. I hear you. I'm just joking. All I'm going to say, he's doing pretty good, though. He's doing pretty good. This is kind of one of those scenarios where, like, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Because, like, I'm not saying Jayden Reed's going to be the best Packers wide receiver we've ever had. I'm just saying he's had a pretty productive rookie season, and I'm here to point that out. Obviously, he's got a long way to go if he's going to become a really good Packers wide receiver. I'm just here today to point out a few interesting things that you might want to stop and look at. So, first of all, we're comparing these 7 wide receivers today, and you kind of want to know some of this background knowledge because not all these wide receivers were thrown in the same kind of scenario. For example, Sterling Sharp and Christian Watson were thrown onto teams that didn't have many wide receivers, and they were kind of automatically bumped up to the wide receiver 1 status. So automatically they're already going to have like more receptions and more yards than, for example, Davante Adams, Jordan Nelson, who were thrown in as wide receiver 3s. And Greg Jennings also up there, wide receiver 2. He's going to have more receptions, more yards. And so we're really going to be paying attention to Jayden Reed versus Davante Adams and Jordan Nelson, who are all wide receiver 3s when they were brought in, and just kind of the similarities between all of their stats. So first of all, we've got the rookie season receptions. And Sterling Sharp, obviously up there at the top, 55. He was an amazing receiver for the Packers back in the late 80s, early 90s, and could have gone on to be even better, but I'm pretty sure he got injured and that ended his career. Obviously, Greg Jennings, Christian Watson, both up there with the amount of receptions they had. They were all wide receivers that were needed for the team. But then you get down to Jayden Reed, Davante Adams, Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson. Of the wide receiver 3s, Jayden Reed is number 2 right now after 11 games. And by the end of the 17 games, I'm sure he's going to be above Davante Adams. Pretty sure he's going to be above Christian Watson, too, in receptions. And all I'm going to say is he's a wide receiver 3, and he's getting more receptions than a wide receiver 1. All I'm going to say is route running is very helpful in being a good wide receiver. But now here's the interesting thing. If we go down to what Jayden Reed is projected, based off the amount of receptions he's had in 11 games, after 17 games, he's supposed to have 55.6 receptions. So 55 or 56 receptions as a wide receiver 3, having as many, if not more, receptions than wide receiver 1s in Packers past. As a wide receiver 3, being able to get that many receptions is kind of something that stands out. But that's not all, because if we look at rookie season total yards, Sterling Sharp obviously still up there at the top with 791. Greg Jennings, Christian Watson, the wide receiver 1s and 2s, all above 600. And then we get down to the wide receiver 3s. Jayden Reed is already at the top. He's above Davante Adams and Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson in total yards in his first rookie season. And this is after 11 games. If we go to after 17 games, Jayden Reed is projected 768 yards on the season. And that's less only than Sterling Sharp, who was a great wide receiver 1 back in the day. That's more than Greg Jennings, who was a wide receiver 2 just behind Donald Driver when he came in, and more yards than Christian Watson, who got thrown in as the wide receiver 1 after the loss of Davante Adams. And that's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is that's pretty good. After that, we've got yards per catch. And this is one thing that Jayden Reed actually isn't very high up on, but I've got some reasons for that. So first of all, Randall Cobb at the top, followed by Christian Watson, Sterling Sharp, Greg Jennings. Excluding Sterling Sharp, Randall Cobb, Christian Watson, and Greg Jennings were all deep threats when they got in. And so these numbers are a little misleading because Cobb, Watson, and Jennings, obviously they weren't going to get the ball as much, but when they did get the ball, it was going to be on deep throws because they're deep threats. Now, Sterling Sharp being at 14.4, I just have to give that to him. He was a great wide receiver back in the day. He was just able to get a lot of yards. But Jayden Reed, he's still above Davante Adams and Jordy Nelson, who were the other guys who weren't really deep threats in their time, who got a lot of short passes for good gain. And even there, Jayden Reed is a whole 2 yards per carry ahead of these guys, so he's finding room to run, just isn't a deep threat and isn't getting a ton of yards every single play. Now if we go to rookie season touchdowns, Jayden Reed is already, after 11 games, the number 2 guy by 2 touchdowns over Greg Jennings, Davante Adams, Jordan Nelson, Sterling Sharp, and Randall Cobb. And the only person in front of him is Christian Watson, who had a very experienced Hall of Fame quarterback in his first season. And even crazier, when we go to Jayden Reed's projected touchdowns, there's a chance he could have 8 touchdowns by the end of this season. And that's more than Christian Watson, Greg Jennings, any of these Hall of Fame Packers receivers. Once again, I'm not saying, I'm just saying And then another cherry on top, it doesn't really have too much importance, but if you look at the rushing yards of all these guys, Christian Watson and Jayden Reed were both thrown into a bunch of jet sweeps, and Jayden Reed, after 11 games, already has more yards than Christian Watson at jet sweeps. So he's shown that he's versatile and that he can gather up yards even when he gets the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Now, I know you're getting tired of all these stats, so let's just watch Jayden Reed played. Here's one of his jet sweeps, one he had against the Chargers, and obviously there's a lot of good blocks, but look at the speed of this guy. It's going to be really hard to tackle this guy when he gets the ball in open field. And here's a jet sweep he had against the Rams, and it's just another play where you can see his awareness of downfield. He can see where these guys are, and he can find a hole. You hear a lot about receiving backs, but this guy's a guy who can catch the ball and run. And I thought I'd throw this jet sweep in against the Lions and just watch the way that he weaves his way through these defenders. He is surrounded by Lions, and yet he still picks up another 5 yards after. The versatility is just looking really good. And enough with these jet sweeps, let's just look at his passing game. Right here in the Steelers game, a very far bomb from Jordan Love. And just look at this catch right over the head, and just look at the speed. He just runs right by these guys. Now, this is what I'm talking about when I say there's reason that he doesn't get a bunch of yards per play. He just gets a lot of these kind of short passes, and he's still able to use his versatility. And stiff arm. But he's still able to use his versatility to kind of get some yards. And his awareness is really well, too, because you can just see how he reaches for the first down a lot and just knows where it is on the field. This play especially, you can just watch him reach for the first down here. He just knows where it's at, and that's a really good skill to have as wide receiver. And, oh, buddy! Look at this long pass right here. And you can just watch the way he just runs right by these guys. He's got so much speed, so much agility, and it's just hard for these guys to keep up with him. Also, shout out to Curtain Call Plays for bringing all these clips together. It really helped. So now, I'm not saying that he's going to be the best Packers receiver we've ever had, but Jayden Reed has had one of the most productive rookie seasons by a Packer receiver we have ever seen.